Welcome to Backyard Cigars, and good morning, and happy Mother's Day to all of the mothers out there who may be enjoying the day just as I am, or perhaps if they're not with a cigar, they're with loved ones. I just want to say thank you to all of you mothers that have made the world a better place. For today, the forecast does call for rain later at 3 or 4 p.m. And while yesterday was supposed to be the better day, Saturday, it did not turn out to be the better day. It actually rained all day. So today I figured, let me get out early, smoke a morning cigar before the rain comes down in the later part of the afternoon. So I said, let me look for something mild to medium, something with an Ecuadorian Connecticut wrapper. But guess what? This particular cigar, the ATABEY Sabios, does not disclose the wrapper, the binder, or the filler. Now, a lot of the things that I'm about to say, I learned by reading interviews that Nelson Alfonso, the founder of ATABEY Cigars, did, as well as a particular interview that he did with the Cigar Authority on YouTube, which was rather interesting. So let's talk about the cigar and why they don't disclose it. Now, Nelson stated on the Cigar Authority video that he would rather that the consumer figure it out for themselves and determine for themselves what type of tobacco is used here. A lot of experts have opinions on what goes into this cigar, and they range anywhere from a blend of Nicaraguan and Dominican, or a blend of Nicaraguan and Honduran, but no one really knows. The one thing that Nelson Alfonso can state is that there is no Costa Rican tobacco in this cigar, although the cigars are made in Costa Rica, and this is not a Costa Rican puro. That we know. That's beautiful right now. It's 65 degrees. It's sunny. I'm really taking advantage of this beautiful day. I actually had my Mother's Day events yesterday because we thought today was obviously going to be not so good for weather, but I'm thankful that I'm having this opportunity to smoke this cigar. Even though it's sort of early for me, I usually don't smoke such early morning cigars. But this is why it's good to have different cigars for different occasions. I didn't have a big breakfast, and it is early. So, even for me, preferring the bold, big body cigars, fuller bodied cigars, it's not what I would want in the morning on a very light stomach. I think most of us can agree on that. There are a few of us that have iron stomachs, and their tolerance for nicotine is through the roof, so they can probably stomach that. I believe that I could probably do it with a hefty breakfast, but even if I did, my desire is usually to go with something mild to medium in the mornings. And my guess, I'm going to give you my guess on this blend. My guess is this is an Ecuadorian Connecticut wrapper. I'm not even going to take a guess on the binder, but if I have to just blindly, I'll say it's probably either a Dominican binder or Nicaraguan Habano binder. The blend, I'm going to leave for last as I smoke a little bit more. This cigar measures in at 5 1/4 by 52. And let's cut to the chase. It's a $32 cigar, 31 and change. And I actually got it on sales, so I managed to score this for probably $27, which is a little better than paying 30 plus for it. And like I've done before when it comes to these expensive cigars, I'm not going to hold it against the cigar in regards to what it offers in flavor and overall experience. But there may come a point in the review where I say to you, I don't believe this is worth the $32. If that is the case. It's certainly considerably much more affordable than $76. And I think you all know what I'm talking about when I say that. Expensive cigars are just that. They're expensive. But what we as cigar smokers are looking for are good, great cigars. So you kind of have to justify the value of a cigar sometimes when it is above the norm. And if you are part of the 1%, the elite group that doesn't look at the price of anything, then you're just that. You're part of that 1% group, the minority, that has money to burn, and you are not concerned about whether you're getting a value. But I sincerely doubt that everyone in the 1% thinks that way. As I've said, I have a few friends that are millionaires, and they watch after their money and they want value for what they get. So just because you're part of that 1% group doesn't mean you're a blithering idiot ready to plunk down $76 or $100 on a cigar. That said, there are cigars out there that are worth a lot of money, 30, 40, 50 and up, that do to some degree justify their price tag. And Davidoff has a few that I've had. This particular brand I've smoked, and I've had one of their other cigars. I won't comment on how I felt about it because it is the same cigar. So I'll just smoke a little bit more and I'll get right back to you. Okay, so let's talk about what Nelson Alfonso, former creative director for the design company that worked with Habanos and has worked with Padron. I mean, if we want to talk about packaging on the humidors and on the cigar boxes, this is the man. But that's not what I'm reviewing today because I didn't buy a box of these, so I don't have the box to go over the details of his workmanship when it comes to packaging and design. We see some of the influence from the Cohiba brand in this band, and this is also a cigar that has protections against being counterfeited and so forth. So Nelson Alfonso, he's Cuban, and he comes from a family that knows tobacco. It's not uncommon for many children in Cuba to get an education in tobacco at an early age. So while he doesn't come from a family with the legacy of, say, Partagas or some of the more legendary Cuban brands, or someone like Hiroshi Robaina, he does come from a family that knows tobacco, and he himself is pretty fond of it and very knowledgeable of it as well. How he justifies the prices of his cigars, or how one can interpret his justification, because he never really goes into, because I do this is why I have to sell it at this cost. Not necessarily. He implies. And if you watch the interview with Nelson Alfonso, how Nelson Alfonso makes great cigars with Cigar Authority, you'll see that a lot of the questions and answers that he provides lend to the belief that some of the practices are the reasons for the price of the cigar. So let's get into it. The cigar, he doesn't indicate how much the tobacco is aged before rolling. Well, let's just assume that it's a mix of 2 to 5 years old. Why do I say let's assume 2 to 5 years old? Well, the norm is usually about a year or two, and he has indicated in other interviews that he ages it a little longer. So let's just say three, maybe in some particular cigars, it could be 4 or 5 years old before rolling. After rolling, he's very specific about the aging process in cedar rooms, in 5 different types of cedar rooms, are rolled cigars are aged between 2 and 5 years, depending on the brand. Something like the ATABEY line, you're talking almost 5 years. So he employs different types of cedar in each of the rooms for different reasons. Because they're made in Costa Rica, he does admit that not much fumigation goes into the cigars. Very little. Not grown, but just the process alone, even when you're processing the cigars and you have them there in Costa Rica, you still have to do something to fend off the pests. They don't have much of a problem with that, but occasionally they will. The cedar helps in that. So he uses cedar from Peru, cedar from Mexico, cedar from Nicaragua, and a little bit of cedar from Lebanon. Now this one strikes a little bit differently because Lebanese cedar is known to be the greatest cedar in the world. Now I know I've done research and I've indicated that the best cedar that you could want for your humidor or for cigars in general is Spanish cedar. And Spanish cedar is found in different places. He even uses Spanish cedar from Cuba, for example. But that's because it's the best cedar that we can easily find and is most plentiful. So in that regard, it still is the best cedar. But if you had the ability to acquire enough Lebanese cedar, then that would probably be your best bet to make a humidor out of, or in his case, a cedar room. It's very hard to import. I don't even think it's allowed. I looked into it. Lebanese cedar was actually used in the Temple of Solomon. So it has a rich history of being used for extremely expensive exotic things and in very important places. I would think the Temple of Solomon is a very important place. Now, the way he acquired this cedar is through cabinets, furniture, loose pieces of wood, through connections, and he was able to bring it over that way and then in turn create a cedar room for it. They keep them in there, and every couple of months they sand the whole room down to bring out the aromatics in the cedar, those properties that would then engage with the cigars and give them either the protection from pests in some cases, or in other cases simply provide another profile. These cigars are heavy in cedar. That I can tell you right now. One of the first tasting notes that you get when you start off with this cigar is cedar. It's cedar. There's a little bit of pepper, but it's a very light white pepper. There was, before, I got a little bit of almond and sweetness, almond sweetness, and cedar. And I'm not surprised by that because every time I smoke one of these, that cedar is prominent. And it's not a bad thing. It's a very nice, mild cedar flavor. It finishes very well. I have no complaints about that. So he goes on to say in the interview that the different rooms are employed, they sand them down, and the Lebanese cedar is the strongest of them all. And after they have been aged in these rooms, then they're packaged in their very elegant packaging He doesn't mention the taxes in Costa Rica. Perhaps it's not something he wants to get into, but I've covered that before in a previous previous review, and the cost of manufacturing cigars in Costa Rica, whether you're growing tobacco there or whether you're just you have a place there, a factory there where you're having the cigars rolled and packaged. It's just very expensive. Even if you're importing, of course, tobacco from other countries, which is what Nelson is doing. The rumor for the longest was that there's Cuban tobacco in these cigars. I highly doubt that. I suspected that, there might be. Anything's possible, right? But after smoking enough of these, I've determined, yeah, Cuban seed, but like most, Cuban seed, but not Cuban tobacco. Cubanesque, quite possibly. It has a Cubanesque profile to it, but even then, it falls short of what we would expect in a Cuban cigar. It's a very good cigar. Don't get me wrong, it is. I'm enjoying it as I speak about this cigar, and I've enjoyed it in the past when I have smoked them. Nice draw, slow burner, good aroma. Not very strong aroma, but it's a nice aroma. Well, another thing that we should touch base on with these cigars is that he likes to say, look, I put these cigars in very fancy packaging, but I don't want the consumer to think that when they're buying these cigars, that the cost of the packaging, because it's so elegant and fancy, is what's driving up the cost of the cigar. It's not. It's a small fraction of the cost. I believe him on that. But when you present the consumer with a $32 cigar, the consumer is going to want to know just why it is so expensive. And in this case, it's expensive because all of the steps that are needed in order for Nelson to get to the finished product. The aging process, the aged tobaccos, the fact that he's making them in Costa Rica. That said, is $32 what someone, or better said, is the $32 price tag justified in this cigar? We're gonna get to that a little bit later, but right now let's just enjoy the cigar for what it is. It is a very good cigar so far. It's held the ash very well. The burn line is impeccable. It's one of the most beautiful wrappers on this cigar that I have seen. I mean, it's just glossy. It's just so smooth, and let's see if I can get you there. It's just a very, very if this cigar could talk, it would be an eloquent speaker. It would be, because it's just that beautiful. These come in different sizes, and Nelson uses the some of the cultural aspects of the Taíno Indians from the Caribbean, which is obviously part of my culture as well. When you talk about ATABEY, ATABEY is the goddess, and ATABEY is the goddess, the Taíno goddess, and she is part of the ritual that the Taíno Indians, when they roll tobacco leaves. And while this is in the interview with the Cigar Authority, this was something I already knew. So I'm not going to give him credit for learning that. But what I would say is that Taíno Indians would roll tobacco leaves, and it wasn't quite a cigar, obviously, but they would sit around in a circle for a smoking session, which was the cohiba. And the shaman, or el brujo, was known as the bejique. And of course, you had the goddess ATABEY. And so they would send the smoke towards the Behike with their desires, with their wishes, so that in turn, the Behike would send these messages to the goddess ATABEY. And part of that was much of that was very spiritual, because in the process of smoking, and there was a moment where the Taínos would enter sort of a trance-like state where they were coming closer to the spirits and experiencing a delirium, a sort of trance-like state, which is one of the reasons why you have one of the cigars named Delirious. So these things would happen in the process of the smoke circle and the cohiba, and it was a way of getting closer to the goddess ATABEY, getting closer to the spirits of our ancestors. I've never participated in such a ritual. I'm obviously, I have a very small percentage of Taíno blood, because apparently my test results claim that I have maybe, I don't know, 12%, I suppose. So, but I have members in my family who have more of that Taíno blood, and there are stories that I've heard. But we won't get into that right now. We're talking about this cigar right now, and that was a part of the cigar. That story was relevant to the name of the cigar, to the company's name. And in specific, this cigar is the ATABEY Sabios. Now, Sabios means wise ones. El Sabio was someone in the village who was the wise one. Now, the Behike could be also considered El Sabio, the wise one, but sometimes El Behike was just El Behike, the shaman. And then you had members of the tribe that were Sabios. They were just elders that knew a lot. And people came to them for advice, for any kind of explanation of things. So that was their role in the village. My guess is that the filler in here is Nicaraguan and Honduran. I get a little bit of the spice, a little bit of that pepper, and I think of Honduras. But I think more Nicaragua when I get the flavor of this cigar. And and obviously this is just a wild guess, but it very well could be Nicaraguan Dominican, because you get some of that those sweet notes, and you start to think, maybe there's some mild Dominican tobacco in here blended with some slightly peppery Nicaraguan tobacco. And it's fun to guess. Do I wish that they would list it? Yes, I do. I think a lot of people do. We want to know what's in our cigars. But in this case, part of the fun is, finding out. There are individuals out there that can smoke just about any cigar and tell you where that tobacco is from. I admire those individuals because at this very moment, I wish I was one of them. I mean, a nice, sweet, creamy flavor. The almond notes have faded out, but they're there here and there. You get a little bit of a sweet almond note. Right now, I'm getting more of a sweet, creamy note, accompanied by cedar hints and a little bit of white pepper. And these cigars are very consistent from start to finish in their flavor profile. The transitions are minor, I think, but they have a large impact in the whole smoking experience because of how well they gradually transition. So I will say that I love the way the cigar transitions. Got a little bit of slightly grassy note right there in the finish. And now we're back to cedar and pepper. But Jose, is the cigar worth $32, or even if you get it on sale for $27, is it worth that? Is it justified paying that amount of money for this cigar? My answer to that would be yes and no. And I'll explain. Yes, this can be a special occasion cigar. Sort of like the way you get yourself a nice Padron on an occasion, right, and you enjoy it. I do feel that there's a lot to this cigar that makes it unique and makes it very pleasurable. No, because I do feel that you can find cigars out there that are much cheaper that will give you the same kind of pleasure. Perhaps they won't be as organic, and perhaps they won't go through the stages of cedar aging that this cigar has gone through, and perhaps you might find it hard to find an Ecuadorian Connecticut shade cigar that employs all of these methods. But make no mistake about it, I don't think it's worth $32. No, it's worth $32 because of where it's made. I think if you take all of those aging methods that Alfonso is talking about, and if you do this in, say, let's just say Nicaragua, this cigar is probably $22. And at $22, I would feel much more comfortable than $10 more at $32. That just for me, that's just, and I'm just breaking down numbers in my mind ever so carelessly because a lot more could factor in. I don't know the exact amount that Nelson is paying on the taxes, but I'm pretty sure that if he was in Nicaragua or even in Honduras, that he would be paying a lot less to have these cigars rolled, number one. And number two, just the importation. I mean, you're not importing at that point. You're in Nicaragua. You're probably getting your tobacco from Nicaragua anyway, so you're not importing. You're actually working with what you have there. And it would be cheaper. And I think that it could probably be a $20 to $22 cigar. And then if you get it on sale, right, we're talking 17, 18 bucks. That's a huge drop from $32 or even the 27 that I paid. But this is speculation here. But I think it's a good speculation to assume that if he weren't operating in Costa Rica, these cigars would be a lot cheaper. But if you want to experience this, and it's worth experiencing, then I would say for every now and then special occasion, try and get the sale and pay a few dollars less and buy it and try it. And then you tell me what you think, and you tell me if you felt it was justified, the price tag, even at, say, $27. It won't be. Even at $27, it won't be. But at the very least, you might be able to still walk away from it and say, that was a good smoking experience. That was a unique cigar. That was tasty. How does the cigar measure up to, say, the Cuban standard and the Cuban cigars that we know and love because of the profile and the slightly Cubanesque flavor that some of these cigars have? How does it compare? Well, it just doesn't. It just doesn't compare. Like I've said before, Cuban cigar is a Cuban cigar. And you might have a few people and a few cigars that get close to that profile and make you nostalgic for a Cuban cigar, but it's just that. It's Cuban-esque. It's imitation, or you know, you have individuals who are just motivated to capture that nostalgia of their love for Cuban cigars. It's not the real deal. And look, Cuban cigars can range in quality, especially depending on the brand. But when you get to try the best of Cuba and what great Cuban cigars have to offer, and you remember that and you have that stored up here, you know that something like this is just not something to be compared. Could it fit in? Like if, for example, the Cuban government was to say, well, let's take that. Well, it would not be what it is. It would be something else. If this was all Cuban tobacco, I think a lot of people would have known that by now. And it's not. And that's fine. It's totally fine. It's a good cigar. It's gotten very creamy. The almond and the cedar are meshing really well together. It's so smooth on the finish. It stands on its own for what it is. An undisclosed blend that offers a lot of enjoyment. It really does. And for me, I'm enjoying it on this lovely day. And I ask you to tell me what you think if you've tried it, because I'd love to hear and chat with you in regards to what your thoughts are on this cigar. Is it Nicaraguan tobacco? Is it a blend of Nicaraguan, Honduran, and Dominican? Or is it simply Dominican and Nicaraguan? A lot of experts have said, and I agree, not me being one of the experts, but me agreeing with them, that the wrapper does look to be in Ecuadorian Connecticut. And that again, if in the case that it's not Ecuadorian Connecticut and it's just Connecticut, USA, that would explain another reason why the price may be high. If he's using Connecticut shade wrappers from America, which are considered to be very pricey, then that would be another reason why this cigar would be expensive. And not to say that those would be better than the ones from Ecuador, but they'd be more expensive, that's all. Whether they're better or not, I mean, yeah, the Connecticut wrappers from America are excellent, top of the line. And one can argue that they're the source, they're the real deal. The seeds that were taken to Ecuador are just that. They're now grown in Ecuador. That's Ecuadorian tobacco. But everyone has their own opinion. I've had the American Connecticut shade, and I think it shines. I think it shines in a way that is superior to the Ecuadorian Connecticut tobacco. But it's just cheaper and more plentiful for cigar makers to use the one grown in Ecuador. And that Ecuadorian Connecticut tobacco is no slouch. That's excellent primo stuff. When grown right, and if you ask the Oliva family, they'll tell you, it's top of the line. It can go head to head with the American any day. It's just a matter of preference. The more and more I smoke this cigar, the more and more I'm convinced that this is Nicaraguan Dominican blend. That's just me throwing my hat in the circle, giving you my opinion, because it's just something so reminiscent of Nicaraguan tobacco in this cigar that it's hard for me to say that there is no Nicaraguan tobacco here. Whether there's a Dominican tobacco in here or not, I mean, we could argue that It may be a small percentage. Maybe there's just a variety of tobaccos from the different sections of Nicaragua, from either Ometepe, which does have some sweetness in their tobacco, to uh, Jalapa, uh, because the cigar does have a little earthiness to it, but it isn't an overly earthy cigar at all. It's more of a, I don't want to say cedar infused, right? Because this is not infused. That's strike that. It's just it has gone through a lot of cedar aging, and that cedar is very prominent. But that doesn't stop the creaminess from kind of taking over, and it doesn't kill any of those sweet almond notes. And the occasional grassy note that you'll get here and there is fine. It's you get it in the finish. It's the aroma picks up once you get into the second, third, and it's a really nice, pleasant aroma. It isn't an overly strong aroma, but it's very pleasant. It's the smoke output is a decent smoke output. You're not going to get huge clouds of smoke here. This cigar's draw is just right. Just right. It's not too open, not too conservative. Slight pepper in the finish that I'm getting right now, whereas in the beginning it was more of a white pepper. Now I'm getting that distinct Nicaraguan type pepper finish. You'll have to excuse the Northern Cardinal. It's their mating season, and they're wooing their mates at this very moment. So that's what you hear in the background. There's an excellent toasted woody note finish that I'm getting now, as I'm in the final third now, and it's almost like a graham cracker with a nice toasted woody note, and then you got the notes of almond and creaminess all coming together. Everything has converged and just has come together. You get a little toasted woody note in the finish. You get the creaminess up front. Like I said, that distinct Nicaraguan pepper spice was coming and going, and then you have like this graham cracker flavor that I just got in that last puff, and it's just really pleasurable. This is a really good cigar. This is very well done. Even if it's overpriced, I would just have to say that sometimes we overpay for certain things, but if we're rewarded at the very least with an intensely pleasurable experience, then we can look past certain price tags. I'm sure that there are many things in our lives that we purchase that are just not worth the what we pay for them, but we pay it anyway because we know what we're gonna get in return. Still, having said that, I still wish that he would move his operation to Nicaragua. Let the cat out the bag and just say that he's using Nicaraguan tobacco, and operate from Nicaragua and lower the price on these cigars. But perhaps he wouldn't make as much money, right? So I don't know the specifics of his finances and his books, so I won't pretend to, and I won't disrespect his company by assuming to be some kind of financial analyst that has all of the answers to lowering the price of cigars. That's not what I do reviews for. But I do appreciate your time today, and on this Mother's Day morning, I appreciate you taking the time to watch this video if you do watch it today. And if not, whenever you do watch it, I appreciate that as well. Thank you for any comments you may leave in the comment section below. And for my subscribers that have been following me and putting up with my long reviews from the beginning or even as of recently, I thank you as well. I appreciate your subscription to my channel, and I thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, mothers of all kinds, from all places and all walks of life, I thank you for your dedication and your commitment to making us better men. Because I know, Mom, that you made me a better man. And I thank you for that. So, happy Mother's Day, folks. Till next time on Backyard Cigars.